The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
There is a really, I would call it more sad than anything else, case in New York State where a judge has decided that 30-year-old Michael Rotondo has to leave his parents' house. And the parents of Michael Rotondo, wanted their son to move out of the house. He was refusing, and the parents had to move for an eviction. And of course, there's sort of the legal complexity of it is that he is not a tenant, right? When you have a landlord-tenant situation, the meaning of an eviction is much more straightforward and sort of understandable. When you have a situation where it is your son, the concept of an eviction is a much more complex one. And ultimately, the judge here has decided that he's going to have to leave because the son ignored them verbally saying that they want him out. The son ignored them giving him written notes that they want him to leave. And ultimately, even an offer of $1,000 as a sort of bridge to helping him find a place to live did not work. And the judge says he's going to have to go.
Yeah, I don't think the son really had a case here. I mean, if he was a tenant, I could understand tenants have a few rights. Maybe it would be a couple months before they had to vacate the apartment.
Yeah.
But if you're just kind of squatting, I guess, for lack of a better term, at your parents' place and you're 30 years old and they say it's time for you to move on, what recourse do you have?
You don't really, right? If we're talking about someone who's not 18, right? If it's a legal child who's not emancipated, then that's a very, very different situation. But you're basically just talking about an adult who's there without paying rent and refusing to leave. And the fact that it is their son, if there's not, if you have somebody who's developmentally delayed and is like legally under the guardianship of the parents, that would be a different situation. But we're just talking about a 30-year-old guy here.
I watched a little bit of the court hearing, and he was actually doing a pretty good job speaking to the judge, using the right legal terms. I mean, he could go on to have a good career, maybe in law, maybe somewhere else, but he definitely has talents. I think there's some hope for this guy.
Is the video super depressing? I haven't watched the video. It's like just on principle because you know what it is that's going on.
Yeah, it's not depressing. I would recommend like the first minute or so. Okay. I also wouldn't be surprised if this guy starts like a GoFundMe page and raises an absurd amount of money for a new apartment for himself.
Why would people, I mean, listen, people donate to a lot of different things. But what would be the pitch for why you should donate to this guy?
There wouldn't be a good one, but it's the internet, David, and stuff happens on the internet that is outrageous and undeserved all the time.
Like, am I lacking empathy or sympathy because I'm saying it doesn't seem like a GoFundMe is the right thing? Like, this is not an individual from an underprivileged upbringing. This is not an individual who's in, anything approaching a war-torn scenario. It's just a guy who, as far as we know, just doesn't want to go out and get his own place.
I'll give him a little bit of sympathy because if he wasn't planning on moving out and it turns out he has to move out today and he has no options, he doesn't have any money saved up or a job, I mean, it's going to take him a little bit of time before he gets things under control.
It will.
So he gets that little bit of sympathy, but he's had warnings for months. So I won't feel too bad for this guy.
Your sympathy level is very low.
It's low.
Like. It's more than zero, but it's pretty low.
Why do you think this became such a big case? I mean,
I don't know,
a news story, rather.
Because parents don't usually evict their kids who are just living at home, right? I mean, it's not usually. I think part of it is because people are fascinated by disaster porn, so to speak, and the idea of a parent-child relationship getting to the point where the parents are evicting their kid, I think is just salacious in a way that's sort of like it's appealing to people to read about, I think. I think it's as simple as that.
I think he can come live here at David Pakman Show Studios. We have the space for him.
No showers, and our lease specifically prevents living at the building. So that would be pretty tough. Okay, let's talk about quitting smoking. There's this idea, which we actually recently talked about. Did we do the story about the exploding e-cigarette last week?
I don't know. My concept of time has gone out the window. It could have been 2 months ago. It could have been yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was last week. I'm pretty sure about that. Anyway, we did this story last week or the week before about an exploding e-cigarette. And in that story, we talked about how there's this idea that smokers switching to e-cigarettes can more effectively quit smoking altogether, right? That's the gist of it. You use e-cigarettes as a bridge to not smoking at all. There's been a study done that compared, very large clinical trial, that looked at 5 different smoking cessation methods. And out of the 6,000 first of all, listen to these numbers. Out of the 6,000 smokers who were in the trial, only 80 were able to provide biochemical evidence that they were no longer smoking 6 months after their quit date. So that's a very, very low success rate, only 1.3%. But if you even look at the group that had temporary success, even if they ultimately relapsed, it turned out that e-cigarettes are not actually that effective of a means to ultimately quit smoking altogether, but that just paying people money was the most effective method, which quite frankly is not very surprising.
Yeah, I don't think it's surprising at all. You ever see those ad campaigns from Above the Influence and those other associations? They'll talk about how much money you'll save if you quit smoking cigarettes. Because if you think about it, if a pack of cigarettes is like, what, $10, depends on the state, depends on the amount you have to pay in the sin tax.
Right.
That adds up to nearly $4,000 per year. That's a whole bunch of money. So if you're saving that plus you're giving a bit extra as an incentive, I would definitely quit.
And the truth is that the amount of money that smokers save also often isn't that motivational, because the idea of saving money is, we know that when you save $10, it doesn't trigger the same sort of dopamine response as when you buy an item for $10, even though you're either exchanging $10 for an item of $10 of value, or you are having $10 more in your account that you didn't spend. Mathematically, you would think actually just keeping the $10, especially when you consider that the item you buy depreciates or becomes less interesting over time, the $10 you save should actually be more influential. It doesn't trigger the same dopamine response, which is where like shopping addiction can come from, type of thing. So I actually know of movements to sort of like retrain yourself where, and the way you do it is, an idea is, if you're about to spend $20 on something and you say, do I really need that? You say, you know what? Instead of buying this item for $20, I'm going to transfer the $20 out of my checking account into my savings account. That can trigger a similar dopamine type response as just buying the $20 item, seeing your savings account go up by $20. And it's an interesting sort of, I hate using the term a hack, but it's an interesting mechanism that some people have used to try to encourage saving in a way that is just as sort of rewarding as spending. And anyway, we're kind of off track from the smoking thing, but paying people not to smoke is the most effective thing.
You know what this reminds me of? When I was in college, I had a friend who was kind of shy, not very outgoing, and this is going to sound very pickup artistry, but we went out to a party once, and I told him before the party, you should go to the ATM, take out $100 in 20s, right, 5 20s, give it to me, and every time you talk to a girl, I'll give you $20 back.
Okay.
And so the idea was he had to speak to 5 females before the end of the night, otherwise he'd be losing money.
Okay.
And because there was that added incentive of, not getting to meet someone, but also losing money, that encouraged him to go out there and be outgoing, and he actually had a great time.
Wow.
So I think this connects in some way, but you may have to help me with that.
Well, he's now in prison, so that story ultimately did not work out very well.
It was all just a scheme for me to make $100. I mean,
yeah, right. That's interesting. No, I mean, listen, it's not shocking that in most areas of life, financial incentives work really well and sometimes better than we would imagine. And it seems with smoking, just giving people money works way better than free smoking cessation aids like the patch and nicotine gum and whatever else. Works better than a transition to e-cigarettes. The best thing is just paying smokers not to smoke. Okay, I've talked before about how I do not have an Amazon Kindle, and I read physical books. And every time people write in and they say, oh, David, it's so stupid, and you're so outdated and blah, blah, blah. Part of it for me is that I don't find the act of reading on a physical device relaxing in the way that I find just reading a physical fiction book is before going to bed, combined with the fact that the blue light, not literally blue, but blue, what's it called? Blue, not blue coated light.
The waves?
But anyway, the blue wavelengths, exactly, can be stimulative to the brain and not encourage sleepfulness. And I know that Kindles and those types of devices have screens that don't have that, but certainly like reading on a normal tablet or smartphone, at least with default settings, would have that. So I tend to not do all of my bedtime reading on physical books. I also have on my phone, I have a blue light filter, which is standard on my phone, which at sundown or even I think I have it set at 7 p.m., which I guess depending on when in the year it is, could be before or after sundown, my phone screen changes and it eliminates those blue wavelengths. Huh. And there's now a study which actually says that if you use a tablet or smartphone to read in bed, it interferes with, I'm forgetting the name of
circadian rhythm?
No, what's melatonin. I'm sorry,
oh, yeah.
I just blanked on it. It interferes with melatonin response and melatonin production, and it is generally just not good for sleeping. So nothing surprising. This has been pretty widely known for some time. This is yet another study where people were studied closely. It was done in a sleep lab, and I am always skeptical of studies done in sleep labs. The problem with observing sleep in general, and especially in sleep labs, is the sort of observer effect, which is people are in a sleep lab, and that's not the normal place where people go to sleep.
You're taking them outside of their environment.
You're taking them outside of their environment. But all else being equal, what they were trying to isolate here was just the smartphone use, and it's just terrible before bed.
I think it makes sense because if you think about our natural biological rhythms when it comes to sleep,
sure,
we'll start getting tired, a few hours after the sun sets?
I guess.
Because we're not, seeing that sunlight and absorbing it as much, right? So by the same token, I think that right before bed, if you're looking at a screen, that's going to have the same effect as being outside during the sunny day. Like your melatonin is not going to kick in.
That's basically the idea.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think it does too. It's just not at all surprising. And I mean, so many people are on their phones in bed, and I think it's terrible. My girlfriend will often do it. She'll be like watching videos, and I'm just like, no. This can't continue. This is a really
You're not going to
bad
like
thing.
this. I do like to listen to something on my phone, like a long 2-hour podcast, and fall asleep to it. I wonder if that has the same effect because I'm not looking at the screen. I just put it next to me and kind of doze off. It's kind of like having the radio on, and a lot of people do that.
Yeah, except that I think talk is not good for trying to go to sleep. If you have music that you're listening to, I think that can be helpful. But from what I recall, especially nonfiction talk is not the greatest. In the same way that reading nonfiction books versus fiction before bed, all else being equal, for the average person is considered not as good.
Yeah, but you have no idea what thoughts go on inside my head if I'm in complete silence, David. And there's no way I can fall asleep to that. I have to have something going on in the background.
What about a white noise machine?
Or even like noise-canceling headphones, something like that?
Well, the headphones can be uncomfortable. So for me, it'd be uncomfortable to wear headphones. But you can get, for $30 on Amazon, you can get a white noise machine, the type that therapists use outside their office to make it hard to hear the conversations going on inside. I have one, and it's great. I love it.
All right, sign me up for one of those.
Yep.
I'll go to Amazon.com right now.
Pat's putting it on his wish list. Okay, that's it for today. We've got a new show tomorrow, new bonus show tomorrow. No show Monday. In light of the story on today's show, we are not going off the air. We're just off on Monday for Memorial Day, and we'll do a show tomorrow, and then we'll talk to you on Tuesday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.